As the APEC members have mentioned, and through this forum, we hope to provide a regional perspective to learn best practices and successful models in APEC economies on digital innovation, especially under this time. The Digital Innovation Forum is divided into 3 sessions: digital innovation for the future of work, for financial inclusion, and for MSME development. In each and every session, we will have 3 panel discussions, and we are honored to have distinguished experts coming from the Asia-Pacific region. For the first session, Digital Innovation for the Future of Work, Harnessing Human Capital in the Digital Age, we are going to focus on how to leverage the capabilities or expertise of pivot projects and services with greater value, and to retool for enhanced employability and sustainable entrepreneurship in the digital age. Our first panelist is Vladimir Glasinovic. He is the Executive Director of Talento Digital para Chile, a public-private partnership that seeks to humanize the digital transformation of Chile. He has more than 10 years of experience in the design, implementation, and the evaluation of public impact initiatives. He specializes in public affairs, digital transformation, government affairs, public policy, and open innovation. Vladimir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'm Vladimir Glasinovic from Talento Digital from Chile. Now it's 10 p.m. in Santiago time, so I'm speaking you from the past, and I will share a little bit of our experience with Talento Digital. I hope the screen is sharing okay. Quentin, is it looking okay?
It should be, yes. Yeah, it's on.
Okay, so as I was mentioning, Talento Digital is a public-private initiative for transforming Chile, for providing digital skills that our country needs for the digital revolution. So the first thing is about sizing the digital talent gap we have in Chile. Different studies have identified that we have around 5,000 digital talent gap every year. Every year, 5,000 jobs are posted and are vacant, are not filled on the side of the demand. On the side of the supply, IT careers haven't seen growth in the last 7 years to attend this high demand from companies for digital talent. And something that is not something to be proud of, in the IT sector, we only have 6% female participation. So we knew we needed to change this in Santiago and in Chile. And we knew that this problem we were facing, it was not only in our country, but it was a problem all around the world. So we went looking around the world to see what other countries and other cities were doing to bridge this digital talent gap that was produced by the accelerated digital transformation that we're seeing across the globe. So we went to see different experiences. In New York, we look at the New York Tech Talent Pipeline. In Barcelona, we look at the Barcelona Digital Talent. In London, we see the major digital talent program. And in Paris, there were other programs, in Argentina as well. So we took the best practice from different cities and different countries. And something that all this positive experience we learned is the way they were using the bootcamp methodology, the coding bootcamp methodology. So what are coding bootcamps? This was the strategy, the best practice that we see that was being used all around the world. I don't know if you're familiar with what this is, but coding bootcamps are intensive, rapid skills training programs in IT skills, usually between 3 and 6 months of duration. Imagine this, I'm an IT engineer. It took 6 years to train to get my degree in IT engineering. This idea of training somebody to code, to be a programmer, to be an IT specialist in 3 to 6 months might sound amazing, but it works. A second common characteristic of coding bootcamps: the teaching method follows a practical, project-based, experiential learning. This is something very similar for traditional education, where you have a teacher just giving a lecture. This is very practical, project-based, oriented, active learning experience. And third, the curricula reflects the current industry needs. What is being taught at coding bootcamps is the exact demand that it's being raised by the industry. So our challenge was quite clear. How could we train 5,000 digital talents per year in a very, very short time? How could we do this? We didn't find any other coding bootcamp around the world that could train 5,000 talents in a year. So we head on for a platform approach. We thought, if Uber was able to be the biggest taxi company without having any car, and if Airbnb was able to be the biggest hotel chain without owning any real estate, so why couldn't we build a coding bootcamp without having any teachers, using the ideas of a talent or a digital talent pipeline as a service? So how does Talento Digital actually work? Talento Digital is a platform that connects the demand for talent, for IT talent, the training offer, and employability. And we do this in 3 simple steps. The first, and one of the most important steps, is that we identify the needs of the company. We know exactly what kind of training programs, what kind of technology, and what are the quantity that companies are demanding. And we connect the funding for the training process in bootcamp modality. This is a public-private alliance. So we funnel funding and we attract coding bootcamps from Chile and also from around the world, from different countries, from the US, from Spain, from the UK, from France and Argentina. We brought and invite coding bootcamps to come to Chile to offer their experience, the coding bootcamp experience. And when we have the coding bootcamps graduates, we do accompany the match between companies and the graduates so that employability is very fast and easy. What is our impact so far? Last year, 2019, we started with 1,500 scholarships for coding bootcamps. This year, we are conducting 3,500 scholarships, and we are hoping to stabilize 2021, 2022 in 5,500 scholarships for a total of 16,000 full scholarships for digital talents. What has happened in the industry here in Chile? The first coding bootcamp arrived to Chile in 2014. And since then, until before Talento Digital started, we only have 2 coding bootcamps, giving only service to a few hundred people per year. After Talento Digital started, we see an enormous growth from coding bootcamps. Last year, we have 10 coding bootcamps working here in Chile. This year, now we have 15 coding bootcamps working in Chile. And we are hoping and looking forward to still growing for next year. We discovered a surprising untapped demand for coding bootcamps. Last year, our first goal for 1,500 scholarships, we received 15,000 student applications. That's a 10 times surplus demand. And the calls we did after this year, their first and second call, has seen 22 times and 12 times more demand from student applications that are available scholarships. So as you can see, there's a lot of interest from students, and we're also seeing a lot of interest from companies to tap this talent pipeline. Over 170 companies have joined our network, demonstrating high interest to tap these digital talents that they're in need for their business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. Now, our second panelist is Michael Fong. He is the Deputy Chief Executive of Skills Future Singapore, or SSG, a statutory agency under the Ministry of Education. He oversees the development of the continuing education and training system in Singapore through managing funding and contractual partnerships with private training providers, institutes of higher learning, and enterprises. He also oversees the human resource function and champions the data capabilities, governance, and reporting practices at SSG. Dr. Fong.
Thank you, Quentin. First off, I want to thank ABAC for the invitation to be part of this conference to discuss this very timely and important topic. So a very good morning to your excellencies, to colleagues and friends in the Philippines government and industry, in the international organizations that are tuning in. My name is Michael, and I'm from Skills Future Singapore. We are a government agency reporting into the Ministry of Education, and our mission is to set the policies and provide funding and support to businesses and the workforce as they go through training and upskilling to meet the challenges of the industry. I don't have presentation slides today, so I'll spend the next 5 minutes or so sharing a few thoughts and the journey that we have taken in the Singapore context. So if you look at this topic about disruption, as some of the former speakers have spoken to this, we have been facing disruptions even before COVID. With the advent of digital technologies, with the rise in data, we had seen many industry sectors being impacted by technology. And what COVID has really done is to accelerate the pace of the transformation that's needed. Because businesses now have no choice but to transform in order to survive. And individuals who have lost their jobs have to pick up new skills to be able to be part of the transformation. So we think that COVID is a great opportunity for businesses, industry sectors, and our economies to transform into productive and more resilient structures that will see us through the current disruption and future disruptions. What we have been working on in Singapore has been to reimagine and to transform our education and training sector over the years. In 2015, we launched the Skills Future movement, and that built upon progress that we made for decades in the area of workforce training. We had to envision a new form of education and training, one that is a lot more flexible and agile, one that's much more adaptive to the current needs of industry and emerging skills needs of the workforce. So through Skills Future, we had envisioned an education and training system where there are multiple pathways, not just an traditional academic pathway, but one that also provides pathways for progression through skills mastery. We want to move from a system that is very much front-loaded, as in many education systems around the world, to one that is much more lifelong in nature. Because our belief is that with the rapid disruption of skills, there's no way that we can equip our students and graduates with all the skills that they need for a lifetime. So our system naturally would have to evolve to one that is much more just in time to the needs of the workforce as they go through the career cycle and the life cycle. We wanted a system that is much more integrated in terms of academic elements as well as work-related elements. So provision of work-study integration in our pre-employment programs, but also going through into the continuing education and training programs for the workforce. And finally, a strong emphasis on priority and emerging skills. Given the advent and the rise of digital skills, it is now increasingly important for our workforce and for individuals to have these skills to be able to be productive and to remain employable. So particular emphasis on some of these skills in pre-employment, but also post-employment training. So the Skills Future movement was really an attempt, a comprehensive national attempt to address the reformation of our education and training system and to provide near universal access to continuing education and training throughout life. Now, as part of the work under Skills Future, we had developed 34 skills frameworks for industry sectors, jobs in the industry sectors, mapping out the technical skills that are needed and the horizontal cross-cutting skills that are needed. And this then becomes a language as we look at provision of training and upskilling opportunities, as we look at working with training industry, with employers, with individuals to develop the necessary skills for the current jobs and for future jobs in these industries. We had also developed a series of training programs in emerging and priority skills. We call it the Skills Future series. There are more than 1,000 courses at the basic, intermediate, and advanced level, covering emerging areas such as cybersecurity, data analytics, robotics automation, use of financial technologies, urban transportation, and so on. In the recent times, due to the COVID pandemic, we had also launched a range of support programs. We call them the SG United programs to create new jobs, to provide necessary training and the upskilling so that individuals are able to take on new jobs, those that have been displaced in some of the hardest hit sectors. So all these work that we've been doing in the past few decades, including the Skills Future movement in recent times, has helped us to be more prepared for the disruptions that we face, and in particular for the COVID pandemic, the disruptions coming from that. What we have found to be critically important in this whole move towards upskilling our workforce and our nation is mindsets. The mental readiness, as Mr. Aboitis talked about earlier. How do we shift employers' mindset to embrace transformation and change? Even as they face challenges in the current business, how do they see beyond and be able to take steps to transform the businesses, not so that they not only survive, but they put themselves on a good foundation for further growth? And similarly, for individuals who are in perhaps currently in good jobs or perhaps in distressed states, how do they embrace that mindset that they continue to upskill themselves, including in important areas like digital skills, so that they can continue to remain employable in the current jobs and also to take on new jobs as they emerge. So we have undertaken extensive engagement by working with multiple government agencies, with the unions, with trade bodies, with community organizations to address this mindset shift that's needed. And the COVID pandemic has just given us further push to advance that message. Looking around the region, we have been working with regional governments, including the government here in the Philippines, to extend our skilling efforts and journey with the regional countries. Yesterday, we were very pleased to launch the Global Technology Innovation Village together with the ADB to proliferate Industry 4.0 skills to member countries of ADB around the region. And that's part of an extension to the skills development work that we are pursuing under Skills Future. And we face many common challenges, our different countries around the region, with globalization, with technology, with COVID, and there are many sectors that require transformation and upskilling. And in Singapore, we have developed the skills frameworks to guide our journey, and we're happy to have our Singapore entities work with entities in other countries to customize these skills frameworks to their needs. And on those fronts, we are very pleased to have partnerships with the Department of Trade and Industry in the Philippines. We have also had conversations with various industry bodies, including IBPAP, with the Philippines Chamber of Commerce, and we hope to continue these discussions with the Philippines, but also in the broader ASEAN and Asian region. And our belief is that when we work together in these areas, we will learn from one another, and we'll be able to ride these disruptions and be able to grow our economies, ensure that our workforce remains employable. I'll stop there, and I'd be happy to take questions during the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Our third panelist is Lito Tayag. He's the chairman of the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines, or IBPAP, the country's umbrella organization for the IT Business Process Management, or IT-BPM industry. He is also the country managing director or CMD of Accenture Incorporated Philippines, with a geographic responsibility for the growth and sustainability of Accenture's business in the Philippines for providing technology, operations, interactive and consulting services to Accenture's global and local clients. Lito is also Accenture's corporate citizenship lead in ASEAN. He counts several years of solid experience in outsourcing, technology, and consulting. Lito, good morning.
Good morning. I thank ABAC for inviting me to be part of this panel. Let me go straight to my key points on the future of workforce. Even prior to COVID-19, we have seen massive disruption brought about by the emerging technologies, which for the past few years forced every business to go digital. And the pandemic significantly accelerated the digital transformation across all industries. And so when we talk of human capital in the digital age, we are really talking of a resilient workforce under these two contexts. That means the workforce needs to adjust to the changing and accelerating new requirements framed by both digital transformation and the pandemic. Building the new required skills for the new requirements then is key to creating a resilient workforce of the future. Our role as leaders, including the chief HR officers, is to help individuals acquire the new skills and mindsets, as Dr. Fong said, needed for the future work. In order to navigate the human impact of the pandemic, let me share one point of view and which we largely are implementing in the industry. This is based on a study made by Accenture. There are 5 key areas we need to focus for a resilient workforce. These are predicting skills demand shifts, assessing skills profiles, connecting workers at scale, accelerating learning, and fostering shared resilience. Let me briefly go through each of them and cite specific examples based on my experience and exposure in the IT BPO industry. The first is focusing on predicting shifts in skills demand. The unprecedented disruption and pace of change can make traditional planning models obsolete. So we start with defining a workforce strategy. We identify the current needs and then look into the future and evolve a plan to include resilience in workforce sourcing and skilling. It is important that we focus on future skills and aptitudes required. And of course, we tap into technology like analytics to uncover labor market, supply and demand. In the Philippine IT BPO setting, we have seen this shift happening even before COVID. During the pandemic, again, based on the study of IBPAP, the shift accelerated in industries like healthcare and in technologies like cloud. The next is assessing skills profile. First, we need to create a baseline for the capabilities we have versus what we see as the new demand. Then we define profiles based on skills, aptitudes, and interests required. We have to share this information, of course, to our people as development opportunities. Let me cite an example, what we have developed in IBPAP called It Starts Here. It's a play on IT Starts Here portal. It Starts Here is an information gateway and a career guide that will help fresh graduates, job seekers, and even career shifters explore opportunities in the IT BPM industry and assess which jobs suit them based on their educational background, their current skill sets and interests, and their desired professional trajectory. The next, very important, is connecting workforce at scale. This challenge is, of course, not limited to individual companies. So as an industry, or even as a workforce, we need to be able to bring people together at scale by being able to shift the impacted employees within and outside the organization, and help people get access to employment opportunities. We need to create partnerships, unlikely as they may be. And this can include nonprofits, the public sector, training institutions, and other ecosystems of the industries. We need to reconsider the workforce model by looking at alternative employment options. Some examples could be part-time, the gig economy, even freelance options. We have 2 good examples of connecting workforces. The first is the Returning Overseas Filipino Job Opportunities in IT BPM. Launched in October 2020, this project is in collaboration with the Department of Labor and Employment, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, and IBPAP, which aims to help returning overseas Filipinos find meaningful employment in the IT BPM sector by linking them with potential employers from the industry. Another example is CCAP.ph. The Office of Vice President Robredo created a job listing platform to provide new opportunities for Filipino workers who are displaced by COVID-19. The OVP has partnered with a tech company and built the website CCAP.ph, where job vacancies from participating employers will be posted and can be accessed by applicants for free. Then, of course, we need to accelerate training. Because of the changing skills requirements, we need to create the ability for people to rapidly learn in order to stay employed. This is quite straightforward, so I'll go straight to some examples and imperatives. Vladimir talked of Talento Digital. Locally, we have the project for IBPAP in collaboration with ICT to upskill our people in the IT BPO industry at scale across different skills, which we have identified are at risk of getting automated or disrupted. The second is the National Upskilling Program, which the IT BPM industry continues to advocate for the development for the upskilling and reskilling program for the country. This is similar to other talent development investments from other countries, including what Dr. Fong has shared for Singapore. The aim is to upskill our people through various channels such as instructor-led training, massive open online courses, certification courses, boot camps for new technologies, and even advanced degrees. And lastly, we need to foster shared resilience. Workforce resilience should be shared at least at the industry level, supported by industry partners that fosters a more collaborative talent ecosystem. We need to keep investing on talent, just as we should put more time and money on alliances and learning and upskilling. For the IT BPO industry, where we have majority of our people still working from home, we need to create a conducive workplace that is the home. And because the home has become the new workplace for many, we need to stay connected with our people. We can do this by collaborating with our partner industries like the telcos and the technology suppliers and the training institutions. In the end, we need to make all these adjustments for resilience, to grow our industries, create more employment, and to make the Philippines continue to be a top destination of high-value services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lito. Now let me now call on our panelists for the first session. We've got around 20 minutes for discourse on this, and I'll wait for everyone to come on, for your screens to come on, and then we'll begin. All right, we just need to get Vladimir and Michael on the platform. Okay, welcome back, Vladimir and Michael. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentations. You've been attacking the issues of disruption and innovation from different angles, but let me just divide this into the questions into two. The first one is about preparing the workforce, preparing the academe, and students to get into the workforce and having these skills. And the second one is to talk about the existing workforce and how to upskill them to make sure that they survive this disruption and they also thrive in terms of the demands of this new imperative of the global digital economy. So let's start on the education side. Vladimir, building on your presentation, I mean, you have coding camps. You're certainly looking at IT skills and critical thinking skills there. But for the gentlemen as well who are joining us, Michael and Lito, if you were to identify the top 3 skills that are needed in this post-pandemic environment where somebody can transcend this disruption, what would they be? Especially for those who are getting into the world of work. Those are the class of 2020 and 21. Let's start with Lito. I guess you're the last one. You can start with Lito first.
Sure. Some of the important aptitudes and skills that are needed in this industry are really more on the soft skills. The technology you can always learn. As Vladimir has mentioned, we have some technology skills that we have. But I think it is important to make sure that the people will have also the right attitudes, the mindsets in order to, so learning, for example, the attitude of learning and wanting to be able to do beyond the comfort zones that you have today, I think it's very important. And that will have to be supported, of course, by the availability of trainings that will be provided by the academe as well. In this day and age, it is important that we have the ability to learn and to absorb new technologies because they keep on changing. The technology itself is going to stay, but the changes itself are going to be more important, as we go down the line. And so that ability to learn new things becomes very important as well, and the openness that goes with it.
Good. Thanks. You can't stress that enough. A critical mindset and a progressive mindset for learning is going to be important, especially since disruption happens on a daily basis now. Michael, let's take your you have over 30 skill clusters, but it's hard to really compress them into and crystallize them into a few. But if you were to talk to a policymaker here, especially in charge of developing the curricula for either tech voc or standard school systems, what would you advise?
Yeah, so I share, a common view with what Lito had just shared. So our philosophy is that we want to embed technical skills together with what we call critical core skills. So for an individual to be able to stay employable, not only they need the technical skills, they must have the right soft skills. And we've defined 16 critical core skills, bucketed them into 3 areas. One is about being able to think critically, being able to identify problems, think about how to solve it, find solutions. Another one is around interacting with other people, teamwork, collaboration, communication, influencing, and so on. And the third one, which is quite very important, is self-management. How do you embrace change? How do you have the mindset that will allow you to take positive steps when you're facing problems? So those critical core skills are important across the entire workforce. So we look at embedding our students with those skills, but also nurturing that in the workforce. Now, on the technical skills that's needed, some of the top skills we have seen, and I'm going to respond to 3, Quentin, since you asked for the magic number. Some of the top roles that are being demanded by businesses that we see today is in the area of digital marketing, in the area of cybersecurity skills, in the area of data analytics. So for those who are looking for job opportunities in the Singapore context, and I suspect in many other countries as well, having these skills or picking up skills in these areas would help to increase the chance of employability. Okay,
thank you very much, Michael. Certainly, a critical mindset is very important, the self-management part. I mean, as an employer, we also look for that in our new hire, so it's good to get some affirmation from SSG. Now, Vladimir, you began this presentation talking about the core skills and how your boot camps have actually gone and helped transform, disadvantaged youth. Tell us from a Chilean example, what can you share with another developing country like the Philippines, which is basically 5 times the population, in terms of what skills would be necessary as we ourselves grew up with the pandemic?
Sure. Well, first of all, we need to kind of separate between what are the main technologies that industry are demanding and what are the skills. As Lito mentioned, technology changes all the time and the demand for them is constantly changing. For example, we recently conducted a research here in Chile, and the most demanded profile in IT skills is the full stack developer, then the front-end developer, and then the back-end developer. And way ahead are data scientists, data analysts, and cyber ethical hackers. The demand we're seeing right now is for front-end, full stack, and back-end developers. But as Lito and Michael mentioned, and I couldn't stress more, this is all about what skills will be needed in the long term. And the most important thing is the mindset. And we try to embed 4 critical skills in all our programs, independent of what is the specific technology we're training. First is communication. This is very different from when I was studying information technology engineering. Nobody stressed the idea of a programmer to be good at communication. Now it's critical. Second, collaboration. The idea of a star programmer that you go alone and you do your programming and your code all by yourself, those days are off. Nowadays, a good programming team is a team that has very different talents. So somebody in the team that doesn't know how to collaborate is not going to be very successful in the industry. Third is creativity. You need to have teams that are able to think out of the box, to think disruptive technologies and not just more of the same. And finally, it's critical thinking. So these 4 C's, communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking is what we call that are the 21st century skills that we try to embed in all our programs.
Right. Thank you, Vladimir. It seems, there's a, variations on the theme with the 3 that you mentioned, but certainly all these core things are from
very similar.
The teamwork, the communication have been quite critical for us as employers, but as across APEC, you're going to see a lot of nodding heads there in terms of employers and also academics. Now, let's move on to, the skills within the workforce itself. I mean, you look at the country like the Philippines, and I think that statistic measures a lot of APEC economies where majority, in fact, the Philippines is 99.6% at least of registered enterprises are MSMEs. And, they're pivoting daily. They're suffering from dwindling cash flow, overhead constraints and all that. How would you prod both policymakers and the entrepreneurs themselves to be able to invest in these skills for the long run, even if it means an additional investment beyond what's critically necessary for survival? Let's start with you again, Lito.
Sure. Let me put this in the context of the IT BPM industry, because that's the industry that I'm most familiar with. But we have right now about 1.3 million people in this industry. And a good number of them, there are still parts of this industry that are in what we call the low-level skills, the low value skills that you have that are at risk of getting automated and becoming obsolete. So it is imperative that we scale up, that we upskill our people at scale. And to a large extent, there is going to be a lot of investment by individual companies. But I think that is not enough. We should be able to have upskilling at scale in collaboration with the government as well as the academy. And this is a very important approach, because individual companies are busy, addressing, doing their current, keeping the lights on their current businesses that we have. And so the upskilling will have to be a collective responsibility and with collaboration with the government as well as the academy. Let me cite a particular example where this can be done collaboratively with a lot of success. In one of the courses that we have that is a hot skill, for example, we take the industry. In fact, one of the companies creates the curriculum and then provides the teachers to be run under one of the universities as one of their courses that we have. What that does is that the requirements are are within the requirements of the industry themselves. They have the subject matter experts as the teachers, and then you have the university as the platform for the learning. And the result is that traditionally our recruitment, what we call yield rate, are about 10 to 12%. And that means we only hire 10 to 12% of those that we test. In this particular case where we actually ran this program, we had a yield rate of as high as 70%. But these are the kinds of examples that we should scale up in order to upskill the rest of the workforce.
Okay, thank you very much, Lito. I mean, much appreciated, especially that as they transition in not only to the world of work, but also upskilling themselves as the world of work changes likewise. Michael?
Yeah, so this problem with MSMEs that you mentioned is common, right? And so we have similar challenges with the small, medium enterprises in Singapore. How do you get them to embrace upskilling and upscaling of their businesses and workforce as they are looking at month-on-month revenue pressures and survival and so on? So in the Singapore context, right, we address it through a few ways. One is to come up with simple solutions that SMEs can adopt readily. So there are a number of pre-approved technology solutions that are targeted for SMEs in different sectors. And so SMEs do not have to go through a lengthy process of technology evaluation and negotiation of pricing. So the government does that on behalf of the SMEs by pre-approving a number of solutions from private providers. In addition to that, the government provides some degree of subsidy to reduce the cost of adoption for SMEs. Now, even with that, it is still difficult because it's not just a cost issue. It's not just identifying solutions. It's adopting the mindset that I need to do something about my business and be able to transform. So here we work with larger companies. We call them queen bees. Essentially, they have a value chain of smaller enterprises that serve them. And with these enlightened queen bee companies, leading enterprises, they would then work with their value chain, SMEs, and work with them on transforming different parts of businesses. And so we are attempting such an approach, and we've seen some initial encouraging success, but really this is the other way that we are approaching the SME segment. Still a very difficult problem with some initial traction.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. And certainly the room for transmission and technology transfer with the queen bees, as you speak, are subject matter experts to smaller units like SMEs is going to be very critical in a country like the Philippines. Now, Vladimir, I want to get your take as well in terms of how you've advised other entrepreneurs in terms of making that investment now.
Sure. So let me share you something that we've learned here in our experience in Chile is that maybe the way we segment companies doesn't reflect the traditional way of segmenting companies. So at least the way we are segmenting the companies we are trying to serve with the digital talents we're having. It's like making a division between those ones that have a core IT that are very dedicated to technology and information technology. Think about Accenture, EY, Everest, Tata, all those companies together with what we call here the caseras that are small digital startups. Their requirements is they're just needing a lot of talent. They need to grow fast and grow with good talent. And what they're asking to us is we need good, fast talent. And on the other hand, we see another kind of companies that doesn't have a core IT, that are very experiencing a very challenging digital transformation. Think about the banks, think about retail, think about service companies. All those companies are looking kind of a downsizing perspective. Banks with digital banks, they will have to lay off several cashiers, bank executives. All those jobs are going downward. So what they're needing, same with the retail, the traditional salesman or the traditional cashier from a supermarket, it's disappearing. So what they're asking to us is that they need to retrain their workforce. They're not telling us, hey, give me more IT talent. They are telling me, hey, I have a lot of talent here. They just don't know how to code. Could you train them to be coders? So from a cashier to a coder. Those are the kind of challenges they're asking to us, because most companies have had a lot of preoccupation for their workforce. They just don't want to start into a massive layoffs dynamic. They want to keep their workforce that have been loyal through many years and retrain them with better opportunities so that digital transformation, it's good news for the company and for the workers. And it's not a bad word, a synonym of massive layoffs.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, you look at this crisis as an opportunity in terms of retooling and reskilling, so they don't have to just survive, but thrive in terms of their employment nature and contribute to the company as a whole. Gentlemen, one last question, and this is a consolidation of the number of questions I've seen relevant to this panel, which is about how early and how can you intervene to make sure that STEM education can really come into the student body as early as as early as elementary school. So the question here that I've seen from a number of them is how do you work with governments to make sure that early on a child or a tweener is able to incorporate STEM education into their learning process, both from the curriculum and outside the curriculum? Lito, let's start again with you.
Sure. Well, as you have mentioned, STEM is a fundamental skill. It's a fundamental requirement for technology down the line. And unfortunately, you cannot teach STEM at the latter part, not in the universities. It has to start on the basic education. And that is something that we all need to accept, because that foundation is carried all the way to the university degrees that we have. And so I think it is important for us, even at different industries, particularly for us in IT industry, to work with the government and to support the development of STEM early on from the basic education. And we actually have started this as part of our collaboration with the government. I want to cite our particular example in Accenture, for example. We have taken as part of our corporate citizenship a program called the Digital Upskilling of the Filipino, where we actually bring the literacy and the at least exposure all the way to the basic education level, with the hope of influencing the full education, including and maybe primarily STEM.
Great, Lito, thank you very much. And it's great to see that public-private partnership happening, especially as the government itself pivots towards module-based learning and remote hybrid systems. Michael?
Yes, so this question is a critically important one. And if you think about why we're having some of these conversations, it points to the fact that our formal education system and whatever training that comes after that needs to be increasingly integrated. Because when we talk about IT skills being very important, then the STEM basis, as the students are growing up in basic education, is important. Similarly, when we think about the critical core skills that I talked about, 21st century skills for the workforce, we need to start working those in to basic education as well. Because if an individual is prepared from young age to think critically, to self-manage and be able to embrace change, to be able to work in teams, then they bring those skills as they enter the workforce. And so when we start thinking about some of these skills, whether it's STEM, whether it's a critical core skills, 21st century skills, we see it as a continuum. And so as part of the Ministry of Education, we are infusing some of these skills that require employers back into the education system, starting in the early years, not just STEM, but also 21st century skills, and also infusing work-related perspectives as students go through the formal education years to be prepared for the workforce.
Thank you, Michael. And Vladimir?
Sure. So very coincident with what Lito and Michael said. Just to add something. So how do you teach STEM? How do you teach communication? How do you teach collaboration? It's not only about the content. So it's a lot about the methodology. We need to make a very hard shift from traditional learning methodologies, passive learning methodologies, where you have a professor giving a lecture, to active learning methodologies, project-based learning. There are many innovative methodologies that are the adequate methodologies to give this new kind of knowledge. And a lot of very important thing is to inspire curiosity. I'm not sure if I'm saying it well, curiosity. To learn science, to learn technology, there's nothing more powerful to have a curious mind, because that will give you the driver to learn by yourself. It's not nowadays a professor pushing you knowledge inside your head. It's your inner self looking for more knowledge, and curiosity. It's a powerful driver.
Thank you very much. Now, and just to take away from that, I mean, inquisitive participative learning, public-private partnerships, especially as the government itself makes a transition, especially with a larger workforce coming in. And thirdly, you can't begin early enough, especially for STEM cell education, especially building in that curiosity and that inquisitive mindset that will allow you to get to grasp STEM as not only a school skill, but a lifelong skill. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, robust discussion. Vladimir Glasinovic, Lito Tayag, Michael Fong, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.